Everything I just talked about times 200. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Carson, and I run a small pressure washing business here in North Georgia. And today I'm going to be showing you the importance of soft washing. You might have, if any young guys or people on the internet, you probably have heard the term soft washing before, and you might have been a little confused. What is soft washing? What's the difference between soft washing and pressure washing? Why is it important? Why should I learn it? And I'm going to be answering all those questions here in this video today. I have been running my business for about a year now, and I have a lot of experience with soft washing, and it's very important. And if you don't know much about the pressure washing industry, it's very easy to get confused on the different terms. So I'm here to break it down as simple as I can so that anyone, whether they're just getting to the business, looking to be an entrepreneur, a veteran even, they can even learn something. So into what is soft washing. Here we're going to be calling it Soft Washing 101. Alrighty, so what is soft washing and why should I care? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you should care, especially if you're watching this video for entertainment reasons. It's good to just be informed on what these terms mean, but mainly for the people who are wanting to start a business or wanting to further their education in this field. This is what this video is for. A little bit about it on my last video. I explained how to use, actually I have a prop here. What we're going to be talking about, I believe it's the second form of soft washing. I actually talked a lot about it in my previous video. Soft washing is basically the removal of organics without using pressure, aka solutions, aka chemicals. Now, I know a lot of people hear that term chemicals and kind of get a red flag like, whoa, I don't want you spraying chemicals on my house or my plants or anything. But if you know what you're doing and you take the safety precautions, it is the most effective way, and it's actually safer to use to soft wash your house than pressure wash your house. Let me paint you a picture here. You pull up to a house and it's the most green house in the world. It's just covered in algae. And when people think pressure wash, they're thinking, oh, he's going to pull out his gun and wand it section by section. You could do that. Number one, that is going to take way too much of your time. And number two, that is the most suboptimal way of cleaning a house. And it's probably more dangerous. Instead of doing all that, we're going to coat the house in a chemical solution and then rinse it off. And then it's going to look like brand new. And we don't have to worry about blowing vinyl off at 4,000 PSI. So it's kind of just a win-win. So that is what is soft washing and why it's important. It's, if any pressure washer, you talk to anyone, they're going to know exactly what soft washing is, and they're going to be utilizing it in their business. There's multiple forms of soft washing, and that's kind of the bread and butter of this video, is all the different types of ways that you can soft wash. Obviously, some are better than others and some are more expensive than others. Again, we're going to cover that all in this video, but just a quick recap of the overview. It's important because it saves you time, it saves you money, it's easy. And if you take the necessary safety precautions, it's actually more safe for your business and the homeowners. Pressure washing is really just used for concrete and the surface cleaner. We normally don't use our wands for too much unless, we need to hit the corners of a driveway or got really bad organic buildup on like brick or something. That's usually when we'll use the wand, but normally most of the time we're soft washing. Alrighty, so we have our first way that we can soft wash, and that is with the good old tried and true pump-up sprayer. Pump-up sprayer, very affordable. It is actually very effective in some categories. It is not very effective in other categories, and I'll go over that. Pump-up sprayers are amazing, and I believe everyone should have one. They're cheap, they're easy to replace, they barely break, they're super easy to understand, and they're very beginner-friendly, which is very important because when we get to 12-volt systems and gas systems, those are a little bit not as beginner friendly. But the good old reliable pump-up sprayer may not be effective, but some things it is king. So the pump-up sprayer is pretty self-explanatory to use. You kind of just throw whatever you want in the pump-up spray and you're able to just pump the handle and spray whatever you need to. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Most of you probably know how to use that. But for us pressure washers, we do use them for grease stains, oil stains, using pretty high dilution of chemical. We usually normally use SH, but say if we need to use a degreaser, there's a pretty good chance that most of us will probably use a pump-up sprayer. And that is probably one of the biggest pro of the pump-up sprayers, is that it has a niche for pretty much everyone in the field. You're probably going to need one or two of these on your truck 24/7. Another pro is that it's beginner friendly. I think it's very important for guys who want to start out or are thinking about starting, is that stuff that needs to be very beginner friendly, because when I started there, I was watching tons of videos and I was getting confused. I had to watch hundreds of videos to actually fully understand what I needed to do, because I didn't know anything about anything. So one reason the pump up sprayer is awesome and it's a pro is that it's very beginner friendly. Other really big pro is that it's cheap. These things are like $10. You can get some really bougie ones with the backpack and the battery powered. I would highly recommend not getting those guys. The last thing that you want to do is have a backpack blow out and you spill bleach or muriatic acid or deadly chemicals on your back, and you're going to be in a world of hurt. So they're about 10 to 15 bucks. You can get a gallon or two, and they're just so easily replaceable and they never break. I have 2 on my truck and I use them all the time for oil and oxidation and gutters. Let's go over the cons now. The cons is not effective for everything. Again, if we're pulling up to a 2-story house and it's covered in algae, that is very labor intensive and you're going to need a bunch of ladders. And then as soon as you step on a ladder, safety is now a precaution. It's good for what it does. I would not touch it on houses. It's cheap. Get 2 of them. You're going to need it. Pump up sprayer. It's an awesome way to do things. The second method of soft washing, and to what I believe is probably the most important for the beginners out there, is called a downstream injector. These guys are probably going to be some of the bread and butter of your business. And I believe that there's no reason you shouldn't have one. So we're going to be breaking down the pros and cons of it. Basically what a downstreamer is, guys, is it goes at the end of your pump downstream from it. So basically meaning that you're going to siphon out chemical through your pressure washer with certain tips. And it's second to none best way to clean a house and most light organic stains. They're about $20 to $25 and they usually come with a filter and a suction tube. Guys, you got to get a downstream injector if you want to be in this business, or they're not expensive at all. They fit any washer. You can get ones that are 2.5 gallon per minute. This one's a 4 gallon per minute. You can get ones that are 8 gallon per minute. Just make sure you get the correct one for your washer. Second pro is that it pulls a 10-to-1 ratio. Now you might be asking yourself, why is that a pro? Why does that matter? The reason it matters is that most of us will be cleaning with SH. And SH, whenever you buy it, usually comes in a 10% or 12.5% solution in a gallon or 5 gallons or from a supplier, depends on where you get it. But the reason that's important is because when we use our siphon tube and drop it in our SH that's not diluted with any water, it will pull a 10-to-1 ratio, meaning it will pull about 1 to 1.25% solution for us to use out of our washer. And that is perfect for cleaning houses. Let's use this thing and coat it in 3 seconds. And bam, all the algae has been melted off the house. It is phenomenal. It has changed my business because of it, because this thing is so dang efficient and it's so easy to use. You guys gotta have one. Very beginner friendly. You pop it at the end of your washer and then drop your siphon tube into a gallon of SH or whatever you're using to house your SH, and bam, you're pulling chemical. There are some cons. Another con, which is actually a pro, is that it only pulls a 10-to-1. So you're basically never going to get anything different than a 1% or a 1.25%. So say you needed 4% to clean something, you're not going to get it with a downstream injector. You cannot alter this dilution rate. It's set in stone. But these things will break. You do need to clean these things out every time you use them. Just drop your siphon tube into a bucket of clean water and spray it for about 3 minutes. Cleans it out. It will prolong the life of your downstream injector. You guys got to do that because these things will break, but they're not too expensive. Alrighty, guys, we have the third way to soft wash, and that is the X-Jet, the end of your pressure washing wand. And usually most of them will have an M5 twist at the end, meaning that you can twist this knob and shoot it a straight line, or twist it and then create a fan tip for yourself. It's actually very nice. I love the M5 twist. Also, certain tips that you can put inside of it to control the dilution rate, and they work, but I do think they're a little bit gimmicky, and I do think there's better ways to do things, but a lot of people love the X-Jet. I use it with a no tips, meaning that it pulls a 3-to-1 ratio, which does come in handy. It's basically just a more powerful version of downstreaming. But yes, I will explain why people use these. The biggest flaw of the X-Jet is the bucket. This thing right here. The reason why this is such a flaw is because that this thing has to be portable with you. So the X-Jet pulls a 3-to-1 ratio. However, you're carrying whatever solution you're spraying. So when you apply the X-Jet to the tip of your washer and you start spraying, whatever's in that bucket pulls out a 3-to-1. So say we're using 12.5% sodium hypochlorite, and I stick an XJet drop stick in there and I pull my trigger, I'm pulling about 4 to 4.25% SH. I'm carrying around an entire bucket of 12.5% SH. And if that thing tips over, you're in a whirlwind of hurt. Two things that kind of go together, they kind of all go together here, is that you're limited to whatever you can do. You can get a longer siphon hose, but it's still very clunky. I personally don't really like using it. The thing is that it's a little expensive. It's around $170 probably, which for some people is expensive. I know for the big guys out there that pull a bunch of money a week, it's probably nothing for them, but 170 is a decent bit for a beginner. Let's talk to the pros now. This is a really good way to post and pre-treat driveways. Now, for posting and pre-treating driveways, I'll make a whole video on the solutions for everything and what solution's good for everything. But for driveways, it's about a 3 to 4%. And if you're pulling 12.5% SH in that bucket, or heck, even 10%, you're going to be pulling a pretty strong enough solution to really post and pre-treat driveways. So it's really good for driveways, and it's a great way to get into roofs. 12-volt system is a little bit more expensive, so this is also a good way to get into roof cleaning. And the XJet can pull enough solution to actually effectively clean a roof, unlike the downstreaming method we were talking about earlier. You're not going to be able to clean a roof downstreaming, but the XJet is absolutely possible. Another pro that I don't think a lot of people talk about is that it's really good for wood cleaning. You can use basically any wood cleaner and you put it into the bucket that you're XJetting from undiluted, and you can coat an entire deck or fence really efficiently. So that's the XJet. I personally wouldn't recommend using it for everything, but it does have its niches, and you definitely will benefit for having one than not benefiting from it. Alrighty guys, the number 4 way for soft washing is going to be the 12-volt pump. I actually built this before I even learned how to downstream because I really like the 12-volt system. It is a little bit on the more intermediate side than beginner side. I think some beginners would have a little bit of trouble fully understanding how to build everything, but it's not too bad, and I will make a video about it very soon explaining exactly how to build a 12-volt system because I do have one. I use the Everflow 5.5 pump and I really like it. Alrighty guys, some pros and cons of the 12-volt system. We'll start with the pros this time. Pros is that it is effective. It can basically clean anything. Whatever you put that you tell that pump to pull out is exactly what you're spraying. There's no dilution. So that side of the 12-volt is very beginner friendly because you don't have to worry about dilutions and math and percentages. Whatever you put in your housing unit is exactly what you're pulling out of your pump. Probably the easiest way to switch between what percentages you want. So say I need a 3% for driveways and I need a 1% for a house, and then now I need a 5% for roofs. It's probably the best way to do that, especially if you have a metering valve. Metering valves are a little expensive. They're around $300 and they're amazing. They basically eliminate the need to batch mix, which I'll talk about in a second. They allow you to control the amount of solution that you pull. So normally for most 12-volt systems, you'll have it hook up to a water tank, a soap tank, and a sodium hypochlorite tank, and you have valves that you can control how much the tubes are pulling out. So I can tell it to pull me at 3%, or then I could be like, all right, now I need a 5%. I can just crank the valve up and now I'm pulling a 5%. And then I'm like, okay, well now I need a 1%, crank the knob down, now I'm pulling a 1%. It's awesome. Metering valve isn't necessarily beginner friendly, but it's not rocket science either, and you guys are going to love it when you start using it. Batch mixing is how I started, and it's controlling what you're pulling out. Basically, it means you're cooking up your own solution to pull out from your pump. You're normally pulling out of one tank. That is how I started. I manually concocted, it's a stupid word, manually made what I was going to pull. If I needed a 1%, I made a 1%. If I needed a 3%, then I made a 3%. It's basically you're in charge of what your pump is pulling. The metering valve doesn't do it for you. You have to manually do it. Start cleaning organics, especially heavy organics at the downstreamer or the XJet, or heck, even start doing roofs. It's a great way to start doing that. And if you are batch mixing, I highly would recommend switching to a metering valve as fast as you can because it's very nice. It prevents you from having to manually open SH bottles and dump it and potentially spilling it. It's awesome. let's go to the cons here. You're going to need a bunch of parts. You're going to need a battery. You're going to need a battery tender. You're going to need the pump. You're going to need hoses. You're going to need hose clamps. You're going to need hoses for it. You're going to need the hose attachment for it. You're going to need alligator clips or whatever clips that you can put on the battery. You do need a decent bit of stuff, so that's why that is a con. And none of it's not really cheap. Cycle marine batteries are about $100 to $200. The pump's about $120. You're going to need barrels or buckets to use your chemical with. You got to get hoses and tubing. You got to plumb them. You got to get barbs. It's definitely pushing the intermediate side of things, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. And I will make a video explaining everything about that. But yes, it's not cheap. It's probably around $600 for everything. Probably only shoots 25 feet in the air, maybe 30 feet in the air if you're lucky. There will be time where you're wishing that it can shoot 100 feet because 25 feet can only go so much. But it does work, and it works really well. And then the third con that I was talking about earlier is that it's not beginner friendly. I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. A lot of stuff, a lot of things to put together. It's a whole other system that's going to be on your trailer or truck. Awesome. And it's very, very, very versatile. And I highly recommend working towards one if you don't have one. Alrighty, and we have the fifth and final way of soft washing, which is called a gas system, which is basically everything I just talked about times 200. Granddaddy of soft washing. It is stupid powerful. It can literally clean anything, and it can reach anything. It can, if you see a mansion that's 5 stories tall, you can probably reach it with a gas system soft washing. It's that powerful. Really, the only cons of a gas system, it's really expensive. I think you're pushing almost $2,000 for this system. It's not beginner friendly at all, and the repairs are very high. Gas systems should be what you reach for in year 2 or year 3 in your business. They have the reach of a pressure washer. They have the flow of a pressure washer, a bit on the intermediate advanced side to set up everything and make sure you know how everything works. It's another system you're adding to your truck. So if you don't know anything about anything and you buy a gas system and it breaks, you're going to be in a world of hurt. You got to take that thing to a pressure washer repair place because you're not going to know what the heck to do. Biggest con too is the repairs are going to be a nightmare for someone who doesn't understand what they're buying. And I wanted to touch up on gas systems. I know most people watching this probably won't have a gas system, but it is probably the pinnacle of soft washing. And if you guys are very serious about it, it is good to know. It's relevant to mention it at least. I want to thank you guys for sitting and listening to me explain what I know about soft washing. And I really hope that it was valuable, that you learned something, whether you want to start a pressure washing business or you're just interested on how we do things. Soft washing is awesome. It's definitely a bread and butter of any pressure washing system. It's basically what all of us do. Hit the subscribe button. There's going to be plenty more content coming out, short form content and long-term content. Stay tuned, guys. I'm out.